While we may not readily admit, but we all desire divine connections and divine relationships. It may not be easy for us to admit the complexity that comes with the maintenance of divine things. You may have heard the saying that calling is not a matter of being and doing what we are, but also of becoming what we are not yet, but are called by God to be. More so, it is good for us to admit that it is very daunting to become what we know not of. However, it is also good for us to recognize that God has not left us without help in the journey of becoming what He has destined us to be. He has planned and aligned all things properly, and all we ever have to do is have faith and trust that He knows all things. His help comes in the form of people, counsel, and guidance. And as you take one step in this dark staircase, things begin to illuminate. Believe it or not, this is how Cover Tuesdays came about. It is my pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to invite you to Cover Tuesday Season 2, Christ Expressed in Conversations. Last season, we sang and had all the fun. And trust me, this season, we will have twice the fun as we look into the Word of God and converse about all that God has in store for us in His Word. But before we go any further, I cannot contain the excitement any longer, and I want you to participate in this excitement. Drum rolls! Joining me today is a very special guest. She's a conceptualist, a writer, a mentor, a prolific speaker. She is known as Neo Phillipine to the masses, but I call her Mama. Welcome. It's so glad to have you here.
I am so happy to be here.
You look so beautiful.
Thank you. You look gorgeous too.
Thanks.
I love it.
It's interesting though that I didn't like you very much earlier on in our relationship. And look at us now.
Look at us.
Wow.
And you are a little bit crazy, because you wanted to take your boots at some point at a funeral just because they matched mine.
My word.
That's how much you just
craziness.
detested me.
Wow. Repentance.
We thank God for that. But you know what? I am happy to be here.
Thank
I'm
you.
excited. I'm already enjoying myself.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And it's interesting as I was thinking back to where we've been and just the journey and the steps we've taken. God faithfully just took me back to some of the years in my life, particularly when I was still in high school, also when I met you around those days. And it's interesting because I was still in high school and God was just calling me into Himself. I can remember clearly that I was having a conversation with God and I denied it. I mean, I said things along the lines of, I'm going to be unpopular, I'm still young, and I was singing then, so people were just enjoying me. And it's interesting because fast forward to 2 weeks later, I meet you at church, and you sort of gave me a prophetic word, and you said to me that God is calling me to a transition, and we must go. You said something along those lines. I'm not sure if you remember, but it was so strange because I know I denied it as well. I denied you. So I'm not sure. Do you remember the conversation?
I don't think that I remember even exactly how I said it. And if I did say that, I'm denying it now. Okay, but seriously, I don't remember what your response was, but I remember that you were not keen at all, But I think it's incredible when I look at just where we are now and the things that unfolded as time went on. It's amazing.
It is.
It's more rich and beautiful to be sitting here, reflecting back.
Yeah, I suppose all things work together for good, and I'm finding myself just reflecting on the journey and how, if I'm thinking now to myself, if I had agreed to God at that time, He was calling me, how so many of the mistakes in my life, I feel that I would have avoided. I mean, fast forward after high school, I'm in the prime of my youth, and I fall into a relationship with a married guy. I was 19 at the time, and I'm wondering to myself if I had, maybe God was just trying to prevent me from, coming into a place of ignorance and just running along a path that I did not know what it would yield. And a few months later, I'm just done with life, still in that space, and I'm like saying my goodbyes to God, and I'm like, guys, I'm out of here, because I just felt like at that point there was a lot of things going on. I felt like life is not going according to what I had planned. And it's interesting because I remember very vividly that you came into my bedroom on that day, and I was just lying peacefully. I was gone. As far as I'm concerned, God had answered me. I was going to meet with the Lord, or maybe not, because I was attempting suicide. Maybe I was going to hell. Luna. But I mean, do you remember the events leading up to you coming into my room that day?
I can. At this point in my own personal life, I am learning to, work out my own salvation outside the crowds. Important. I'm, learning to just trust God with the rejection that I had experienced.
Wow.
The heartbreaks and the harm that I had experienced. And I'm not talking about the kind of heartbreak that we often feel so comfortable to put out in the public, because it just means we were done wrong. But in the wrong things I had done myself, and the hurt I had caused other people. And the love of God through that season in my life had just really proven to me that if He's saying, turn back from walking in the street now, go to Knox's house, couldn't be wrong.
Wow.
I had, walked a journey where I was finally walking in this conviction. I was convinced that God is right, God can't be wrong.
Wow.
And when He said to go into your room, I walked in there, asked around, I didn't even know where your house was.
Yeah.
And when we got there, I found you laying there in the bed. I didn't even know that you had overdosed on pills until much later in the years. And I remember He just said to me, pray for her.
Wow.
And I did what I heard Him say to do. We did that. And at the point where I felt that like there was breakthrough, my job was done. And I remember just going through your phone, looking for someone's number, one of your family members, to call them and say, hey, come get your child, And the rest is history. We are here now.
Yes.
And it's incredible. Beautiful things don't always begin so beautiful.
Yeah.
And look at you now.
It's interesting.
Hello.
Like, as you're saying, the rest is history. I remember a few days or months later, when I was now out of hospital and I'm all well, and God had given me a second chance at life. And I think in my own eyes, I was just trying to adjust to life now, because as far as I was concerned, I was gone.
Yeah.
And I remember just meeting up with you at a shopping center, and you were so excited to see me, and I was like, what is wrong with this girl? Like, and I think as I reflect now, I realize how in most instances we miss these divine moments, we miss divine connections. Imagine at that time, I was still not understanding what's going on in my life. All I knew is that I just didn't like this lady, and and God just sort of reminds me of the divine things, the divine connections that He sows as you journey in your life. And I think about the special moments we have shared later on. And it's interesting because now we are sitting like this, and we are talking about Cover Tuesdays. This is Cover Tuesdays, and there's background to how Cover Tuesday started. And it's in these intricate, special moments where every Tuesday I would come and see you. And, in hope of the fact that I'm in this life now. And I remember I just came running to you and saying, I actually don't know how to do life. I'm stuck in a lot of wrong places, wrong connections, wrong relationships. And I started coming to see you on Tuesdays. And I'm just wondering, in terms of how do we miss divine connections? How do we miss these divine things that we sort of desire, but we are missing them? I doubt that I would have been sitting here had it not been for meeting up with you.
The orchestration of God. Absolutely. When I think what makes it tricky about divine connections or divine moments in general is the fact that they never feel divine. In most cases, they don't always feel like this is a divine moment. This is what I've been praying for. This is what I've been hoping to have. You don't always feel like I'm standing you know, in a moment that I prayed for. It's like when you believe in God for a miracle, for example.
Yes.
You know, a lot of us have prayed for things, the jobs we have, but
Sure.
because, you know, there's an annoying boss, you don't even remember that you're
Wow.
standing in the miracle that you
Right.
prayed for. Sometimes, you know, in marriages that we prayed for, and
Wow.
because you're going through this, you know, tricky seasons, you just feel like, I don't even get what this is. And yet it is in those moments where we are, you know, we are supposed to be remembering or living in the remembrance of what is this, you know, what does this represent, and how do I show up in a way that can be able to honor it? Because you don't always, even, you know, when you look at the scriptures, I always think about Elizabeth and Mary, and the Bible tells us how she heard the voice of Mary when she walked in and had the baby lived.
Wow.
And it's such a beautiful scripture. And in most cases, that you sort of expect that because she was pregnant.
Yeah.
And so it was because of what she was carrying, what was in her, that made her recognize the voice of Mary. There was a greater significance that it was a divine moment, but it made it easier because of where she already was. In a place that she was. What do you do in a case, for example, where, you know, like the rulers of this world, as the Bible puts it, that they sat and they stoned Jesus Christ. They picked up the stones and stoned the king that they had been waiting for.
Wow.
You know, because when you are in that level of ignorance, you filter life and moments from that place.
Wow.
And what I've learned about divine connections is that, you know, we need a little, we need to express grace to other people, because you don't know where the person is, you know. You don't know which season they are in. They could be, you know, you could be in a moment like a Joseph, you're in prison, and somebody, you know, there's a demand for you to express your gift, and you're showing up, and that is a divine moment. And so what I've learned is just to be sensitive, you know, to God's leading, no matter where you are, to be sensitive to His voice, and to show a little bit more grace to other people. I think we will see a lot more, you know, little million miracles. We will see a great amount of the move of God in people's life if we had to just be genuine, but also just be patient. Because I don't know where you are, I don't know where you've been, but what I know now is that, you know, God wants to do something with your life, and I must stick around, and I'm going to show grace, I'm going to be kind, I'm going to be as patient as I need to be until I can see that thing in fulfillment.
Wow.
So it's quite interesting, because I think even in your part, you know, we went through, you know, multiple situationships where you just downright just rejected me. You didn't want to know anything. I tried reaching out until a point where I realized, you know what, I can do best praying for this girl. And, you know, God was continuing to say, pray for her, and that's all I knew to do. And that says something to us, even as we desire to partner with God, that you can always, you know, do something. You can always serve people's lives, and they don't necessarily need to be in your space, you know. But if you're walking in that level of sensitivity and that consciousness of I'm partnering with God, you know, to do what He wants to do on the earth, greater things will be seen.
Wow, interesting. Wow. You're touching on the fact that we've had a lot of situationships, you know, and I mean, with the length of the journey, we've had a lot of encounters, and we've sort of had to grow into each other. There were moments where, when you tell the story, you say such things that I was in a place where I wasn't even able to express myself. I didn't know where I was, so as to articulate clearly that this is the kind of help I need. And I think for me, at this moment, in terms of learning to be vulnerable, learning to stay in a place where you are open enough for people, for the people that are in your life, so that they know how to grow with you. And I think for me, it's an interesting factor about human relationships, and it doesn't exempt divine relationships as well, because when we hear the term divine, we are thinking, oh, supernatural, things are just going to be organic, and there won't be any you know, discord in the relationships. And I think I'm glad to have learned the art of patience from you, in a sense where you were waiting for me to come to you, waiting. Even when I came to you, I didn't even speak. I couldn't even speak. And you tell a story perfectly of how you've had to just wait on God for him to sort of tell you what's the next move. Mm-hmm. And I think I want us to just explore that a little bit in terms of relationships, and not only relying on each other to know the heartbeat, but because this is God's design, and to also understand that God has a say in this relationship. And so there are moments where I would be nonchalant to you, there are moments where I wouldn't want even to commune with you. And I think I want us to sort of explore that. What do we say about the dynamics of relationships, just human relationships, and even the ones that we feel that, God has divinely connected us.
Patience. I think that's one of the greatest values you could, invest into the relationships that you are able to have. I think with you, when you kept coming and, you finally, you rocked up and you said, you are the person that I need to come to, and I'm here. And it had been years. You remember the lines better than me. But it had been like a couple of years. How long again? I don't know.
Wow.
When you finally came.
It was like 4 or 5 years later.
Right. Yeah. And so at that time when you came, you are just like, you sit there and you're like, I need your help. And I'm trying to say, okay, fine, how do you need my help? And I wasn't getting enough to work with from you. And you would just come. And I remember being so frustrated with God, like, what do I do with this child? Like, she comes here, she sits, and she just like, and she like will text me and say, can I come, because you started with Tuesdays.
Yes.
And then I'm like, okay, this is going to be progressive at some point. And after Tuesdays, we extended the days, and you still were not talking, which was more frustrating. But what I had to learn in that, which is what I think is key into just relationships, is that waiting is a posture.
Wow.
That I didn't have to be in a place where I had to now forge being patient with you in that moment, but that it helped that I had been patient in prayer. That my heart, God was preparing my heart in that time or during that period, even when you were not coming, to just trust that if I say a prayer because he says to say it, that we're progressing.
Sure.
That if I show up because he's saying go there, I don't have to see the results. I don't have to see the ideal results or understand what the results will be, but I have to trust the process. I have to trust that he's leading those mini steps that you take. They are yielding fruit. And I think what I've learned even in divine relationships is to just to give relationships to God and to remain with the heart posture that waits on the works of the Lord, for him to do what he wants to do. So to exercise that patience, to just show love, unconditional, and sometimes it's not easy to forgive. And when I think about how often I need to be forgiven, how often I need his patience, that's my home to how I filter, into relationships. And I think that helps. I strive for that, all the time. And I think that helps in just maintaining even the relationships that God gives us.
Sure. Wow. Interesting. And I'm just wondering, thinking back to my journey, and at the time that, I was denying the calling of God, thinking to myself, I'm going to be unpopular. And all I wanted to do, as with every teenager, you just want to be famous. You just want to be out there. And I thought, I could sing. And at that time, I was extremely celebrated where I was. And I thought to myself, I'm going to lose this. And little did I know that allowing the timing of God, allowing the way God wants to do his things, you will ultimately have the life you are hoping for, but for his glory. And I think I was eliminating all of the beauty and the glory of God in it, because I thought doing it God's way means no fun. And here I am on the other end, I'm looking at my life and the way that God has sort of redesigned it and has permitted me to still enjoy singing, still enjoy ministry, still enjoy life, but for his glory. Now the the purpose has entirely shifted and he's the priority. And I'm wondering to myself, had God permitted, like probably he does with others, you know, when Paul speaks about the Israelites' conversion in the book of Romans 11, and he says, ultimately they will be saved. But God makes his mercy so conspicuous by allowing them to continue in sin, type of a thing. As God allows other people to continue in sin, I'm wondering how my life would have been, you know, not in a place where I'm functioning openly in the gift of God. I think maybe I would have gone in the music industry way too young. I would have explored other things way too young, to such an extent that I think I wouldn't have seen the beauty of God. And I wouldn't even be existing in the community of family, of believers, of friends and loved ones that God has been able to connect me with. And I think we miss out on the part of community and communion and fellowship when we want to do things our way. And I think I want to pick your brain on that, because I know you are big on concepts of love and you know, fellowship and family and relationships. And I think I want us to pick on that as a key point to say, what does it mean if you allow God in your personal life? What does it mean for your community? What does it mean for your family? And what does it mean for the greater purpose for which God is able to accomplish?
I think that's a brilliant question, because I think that's the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
You know, is that what I give you as God is going to be amazing for you, but it's going to be even more amazing for where I've placed you. You know, and I think we usually forget that. I mean, you say something about where you have to make a choice between walking in purpose with Him.
Yep.
Or walking in what you believe is your purpose outside Him. I think the most dangerous thing about humanity is getting to a place where you get to explore the capacity that which you have outside God. The fact that you can build a Tower of Babel without His instruction, without His leading as such, and you have the capacity to do it. I think that's the most dangerous discovery that any human being can have, because I believe every single one of us, you would have passions. It would be expressed in your heart, whether as a passion or whether it's just as a thing that you strongly feel about, and it's so easy to want to dive into all these little things, because that's what you know. It's things that get you excited. And the tricky part though is the fact that it's not about how much gifting or skill or talent you have in a particular thing. We can argue about great gifts and not so great gifts. People say all sorts of things about people's talents and gifts and skills, but it's not about how major your gift is. It's really, for me, about who you are when you get to live within that realm, when you get to express that gift. And I think the thing about just encounters, because for me I feel like that's so important, to just walk in God's divine encounters personally, to allow Him to encounter you. I think about my life, I honestly do not think I would have been the same, if my heart wasn't touched by in those moments where it was so dark in my life, the sickness, that I had to endure for the many years that no doctors could heal, the rejection, the pain, all these little things that one went through. They taught me to come to God. They really adjusted the way I now show up into the world. I think there is nothing as an encounter, that has an ability to change how you show up in the world. I really strongly believe that, and it is in those moments for me that has become a home in how I filter the mess of other people, because I saw His love expression in my own mess. I saw the beauty of His grace and His patience and His forgiveness, all the beautiful things that He gave me. I now know I can only translate that into another person's life. And if we ever desire to partner with Him, that I believe really should be a place of how we do it. Because that way we are humble. for me, I learned to be humble. I learned to really see God when I see someone else, no matter how messed up they are, because I know to be so messed up, and yet he would still look at me and say, you're the apple of my eye, and he would still, embrace me. And so I believe when we allow God to encounter us in our personal lives, we become a home, and we become a safe space for other people, and I think that's how we are able to then allow people to come to our light. We are the light of the world, and the city on the hill. Do you know what I'm saying? It's gotta be on the hill, because everybody must be able to see it, and everybody must somehow be able to have access to it, because we are a people that carry the reconciliation of the Lord. If people are to be reconciled to God, then we need to be in our position.
Absolutely.
And so I think it's so necessary that we allow the dealings of God in our lives. We allow his healing, we allow his forgiveness, we really allow him to do a work in us, so that we can stand strong for him, even when other people come. That we are in a position to embrace, because we have been embraced. We're in a position to love, because we have been loved. We are in a position to show kindness, because we have received his kindness and his mercy, and that we can love the undeserving. Because my thing is, I get, and that's my passion, I get that you go to church. I'm happy, bless the Lord. I get that you concerting and you're conferencing yourself now and then, and that's beautiful. All that is necessary, and it has its place, but I want to know, do you forgive the undeserving? I want to know, that are you in a place in your life where you can forgive that parent that abandoned you? I want to know, like when you get into the workplace, like, are you really expressing Christ? Those things are important. The very same pretty Bible that you own, do you open it? Do you have the tools to actually be able to read it? Do you understand what it is to work out your salvation? And that's become my passion today, because again, having been in church and having been so committed and serving, and yet being so ignorant and being in this dark place, but that for me has really become a home wherein I get to be able to minister to other people with much more grace than I would have had I not experienced that level of ignorance in my life. So I really feel like encounters in our lives are at utmost important. I don't even know how I would have been able to receive your ignorant self had I not walked in ignorance myself. How I would have known to love your lack of expression, because I didn't always know how to express myself, and even though what's beautiful about this connection was the fact that even when God was working in your life, but he was also working in mine. He was teaching me, to love. He was teaching me to lean into his voice, and all I'm hoping for is that you are able to do the same for others. Do you know what I'm saying? That we can multiply the righteousness of God, then his salvation can fill the earth. That's what ultimately it's about. We need to be able to give what we want to see fill the earth. Then his kingdom will come on the earth. Then we become tools in his hands, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And so when I see you, I see just the beauty of the work of his hands.
It's so hot in here. My word, you are dropping pearls of wisdom, and just as a point of departure and some key takeaway homes for the people that are listening. Some people I believe people are always in different places, perspectives, places in their hearts, in their minds, in their journeys. And I think at this moment it's really important for us to speak into their lives, so that at this moment this also is a divine encounter. This for them is a turnaround and a shift. And so for me, it's the line you said, to say, at this moment now, when you see people, you see God. I think for me, that is the highest point of perspective we could have as the children of God, in order, or if we rather want to participate with God in this work, it is to see people as he sees them. And so we begin to journey with him in calling back people like how you have expressed. And so I'm in my own world right now, and I'm so grateful that we've had a chance to just explore each other in this level. I want to hear from you. What are the key takeaways from our conversation, from our journey, and how we've connected, and what we both share in terms of vision, and ultimately what we want to project to the world. Let us know.
God loves everyone, and I think that's so necessary. God is love.
Yeah.
And in his love, he's patient, he is kind. And we're not going to get to a place where we serve him, where we live for him, if we are unable to glean enough from him.
Wow.
That we could be able to feed even those that are around us.
Sure.
You know, what my hope really is for somebody watching today is that there would be a desire in their hearts, that they would want to become more, that life wouldn't be just about, you know, pursuing survival. And I think from that point we will begin to see a million little miracles all around us. You know, and I want people to know that God wants to use you. God, we don't need a platform, we don't need a pulpit to be able to make an impact. We just need a heart posture that has eaten the heart of God so much, which is always the people. That we can go out there and are positioned to save the lives of the people. Then I think Jesus is smiling when all that is happening.
Oh, I'm smiling too. My goodness, I'm having so much fun. And I'm so grateful for you. Like, my heart is taking a lot of backspace right now. I'm excited, and I'm so humbled more than anything else to have you as a part of my life, to have you in this manner, in this fashion. And I always tell you that I wish this for others. I wish it for many others to experience a love like this, where they are turned to become a different version of who they are. So I appreciate you so much.
I appreciate you too. You're working on that mentorship program so that people can come through.
Wow.
But you know what? I appreciate being here. I love you. I love your heart. And I know God is going to do even more amazing things. Thank you so much for having me. I have this one thing against you though. You didn't allow me to sing. Why?
Oh my God. You know what? For you, the world. I've got my band here.
I taught you how to sing.
I've got everyone. How could I forget?
Like, I taught you everything.
My word.
You know what? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate you.
I love you so much. Well, what a time of reflection and openness and growth. One of my favorite speakers and author, Brené Brown, once said, staying vulnerable is a risk we all have to take if we really want to experience true connection. And family, that's what I'm ultimately hoping for, that we would be able to forge openness and growth in relationships, true connections, you know. And so I want to extend an invitation to you that wherever you are in your relationships, do take the time to reflect and to express and to check if you are really growing and becoming all that God has destined for you. So please do stay tuned for Cover Tuesdays Season 2, Christ Expressed in Conversations. I am super excited. Next week's episode, we'll be diving right into the well of the wisdom of God in matters relating to salvation and the gospel. Be sure not to miss it. Remember that I love you and I'm praying for you. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click the bell in order to receive notifications. And please, yes, please, let's engage further. Please leave your comments, your likes, and do share these videos with your loved ones. I love you all. Take care. God bless.